Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Community Engagement Series. My name is Dr. Priscilla Medeiros. I'm the Knowledge Mobilization and Community Engagement Specialist at the Edwin S.H. Leong Center for Healthy Children. I'm also your moderator for today's event. I'm so excited to introduce our speaker, Dr. Roberta Woodgate. Dr. Woodgate is a distinguished professor in the College of Nursing at the University of Manitoba. She's been a leader in engaging children and families in research for almost 20 years, applying innovative approaches that amplify the voices of children and families most affected by the research. Today, as a Tier 1 Canada Research Chair in Child and Family Engagement and Health Research and Healthcare, she continues to be a trailblazer in qualitative research and a leader in child-centered methodologies and innovative arts-based approaches in research and dissemination. Her presentation today will discuss the importance and use of arts-based approaches to involve children and youth in the research process. And it certainly is going to highlight photo voice as one of these methods for including youth voices in research. I'm very excited to engage in a much larger conversation with those on the call during the Q&A portion. I'd now like to hand it over to Dr. Roberta Woodgate.
Thank you, Priscilla, and really pleasure to be here, if not in the same room, in the virtual room with everybody. So I hope you'll find my presentation interesting and hopefully you'll get something out of it. We can begin the slide presentation. Before I start, I'm at the University of Manitoba. I'd just like to acknowledge that the University of Manitoba campuses are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We recognize and honor Treaty 3 Territory Shoal Lake 40 First Nations, the source of Winnipeg's clean drinking water. In addition, we acknowledge treaty territories which provide us with access to electricity. Now, my research program is named Engage, and as for my program, Engage believes that acknowledging this truth is a small but critical step in building stronger relationships with Indigenous communities. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and the process of creating them, and we are committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Thank you. Next slide, please. So today, what I hope to cover is just talking about why it's important to engage. And although my presentation is focused on young people, I think what I present here can be used for all age groups. I'll give you a little bit of background to my Engage research program, and then I'm going to do an overview of the arts-based research methods that can be used. And then I'll give you an example of how I used arts-based research methods for my study that focused on youth voices, the anxiety study. And then I'm going to go back and talk again about how we can best engage young people in research and where do we go from there. So next slide, please. So why is it important to engage young people in research? Well, despite Canada being a rich country, UNICEF has done report cards on the state of our children in our country over the years, and the most recent one shows that we continue to be lower at the lowest bottom of one of the richest countries in the world. So we rank 31 for mental health, 30 for physical health, and also 18 for learning skills, which again, considering we are a wealthy country, is quite disappointing. So how can we better improve the outcomes for children and young people? And when I talk about children, I mean children, youth, and young adults. So how can we better our outcomes? To do that, we need better policies, and to do that, we need to listen to young people, what they feel are their needs and how we can best address them. So it's really important to listen to children and youth, and that's why I think it's important that we engage children and youth in research, in policy, and so on. Next slide, please. Likewise, the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child reinforce that it's a right of the child to participate. And again, that is why, it's important to involve children and youth in the research. Next slide, please. And so my research program, it's titled Engaged, and it really is focusing on engaging children and youth in research and their families at all stages. My research, importantly, it takes a human rights-based approach, and it's really important that we really afford children the opportunity to participate and share their views in research. I believe young people have a right to be engaged and do so in my research to be able to improve their lives and their well-being. And so again, my whole research program, although I focus in many different areas of research with young people, from children with chronic illness to looking at the children aging out of care of the child welfare system and so on, a key underpinning of any study that I take is engaging children and young people in research. Next slide, please. It used to be, when I first started out, research involving children and young people really was mainly research that involved research on children instead of research with children. And that's when I started out, I tried to, really see children at the focus of the research study. So, and I just want to share with you one quote from one child in one of my studies who reinforced why, you can involve children in research and that they do have something to contribute. And just take a moment to read that. Next slide, please. And here are some other quotes from young people who have been in my research. And as you can see, a variety of reasons why young people feel it's important to be in research. Seeing from they want to know what the results are, from helping people to just having a voice and being listened to. Next slide, please. So, when involving children and young people in research, I have mainly used qualitative methods. And over the years, I've incorporated more and more of arts-based methods into my research. And when I say arts-based methods, I'll go over what the types of different arts-based methods that you can use in research. But why arts-based? Why involve arts into research? Research that uses arts in the broadest sense is to explore and understand and represent and even challenge human action and experience. The idea that art could be used as a way to understand human action and experience has turned arts-based research methods into a very popular approach for those committed those who are committed to socially engaged research practice. And I do believe when you involve arts-based methods in your research, it is really another way of advancing participation and social engagement of those participating in the research. So socially engaged research practice can be conceptualized as a research developed through collaboration, participation, dialogue, and immersive experiences. And next slide, please. So arts-based methods, I see by incorporating them into research, it's a way to explore, understand, represent, and even challenge human action. It's participatory in nature. And arts-based can be incorporated in one or more aspects of the research process, from using arts-based methods to come up with a research question, through data collection, through knowledge dissemination. So again, depending on where you want to position arts-based, it can be from, like I say, from the developing the research question to knowledge translation. And I really believe that arts-based methods are really a way of positively transforming participants, communities, and societies. Now, when it comes to arts-based methods, there are various forms, and depending on who you read, how the arts-based methods are categorized will vary. But but again, so that you may find them categorized in different ways. But the arts-based methods, there's visual arts, and that's what I'm going to be showing you today. So visual arts can be anywhere from drawing to photo voice, to painting, to digital storytelling and animation. And then there's sound art, which can involve radio, soundscape, literary arts, which can involve poetry, and fiction, for performing art, dance, and theater. And one of the examples that I'll show you today also incorporates dance into it. And then there's new media, which again involves the virtual world. And that can be video games, blogs, and the virtual world falls under quite a broad category. And then lastly, multiple forms, where you can have a mixture of the various types. When I started out doing research, I didn't even realize at one point when I was saying that I was using arts-based methods. Remember, one of my earlier studies was looking at young children who have asthma, and I had the children draw what a good breathing day looked like, and what a bad breathing day looked like. So, and then I found that by incorporating the arts-based, it allowed children more space and a better way for them to express themselves in a more creative way. And so that's when I started, doing it more and more in my research. Next slide, please. I just want to show you some examples. So this was one of my earlier studies where I looked at children's experiences with cancer, and I had developed this computer video diary where they could daily go in and write about how they were feeling, just what daily life was like. And they could also, there was a drawing tool on this diary, and as you can see, and they did comment on their drawings, and I did interview them afterwards as well with their drawings. But you don't even have to read the text that they say about these drawings. But that one picture that the child had said how the symptoms had just consumed her, and likewise with the other picture, it was the symptoms were consuming them every day. Next slide, please. So this was another picture from one of the young people's diaries, and you can take time to read the quote, but basically saying what it was like to be in the hospital, and the picture says it all about being in a prison. So just take some time to read her quote. And then the next slide, another example. This is an example of a study that I'm doing right now. It's looking at young people who self-harm. And instead of just picking one type of method for art-based methods for them, I'm allowing them to choose what arts-based methods that they would like to do for this study. So with this study, we're first interviewing young people who self-harm, and then I give them an art booklet where it's just a booklet that's more so to help guide them, where there's some questions in the booklet, and where they decide on what types of arts-based methods they would like to use that represents how they feel with, and how the self-harm experience, what it represents to them. And so this one participant did a body map of herself, and also the body map is where you trace your body on a large piece of paper, and then you in your body draw different pictures or what represents the experience that they are focusing on. And they can put words on, pictures. You can also put material or add anything to the body map. But this is what her body map looks like, and it represents what it's like to self-harm. And so you see the words damage, resilience, hurt, and also hope there. So again, you can see how well her interview really has revealed a lot about her experiences. Just looking at this one piece of art, how much it can help for others to understand what it's like. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is another form of arts-based methods. This is where it's a focus group, but part of the focus group, what you also have is a graphic artist, and the graphic artist will highlight keywords, draw pictures that represents what the participants are saying. And this particular focus group involved interviewing young people in a focus group about what is important when it comes to engaging young people in research, and you see some of their thoughts. And sometimes these graphic recordings can have more pictures as opposed to more symbols as opposed to less words, but it really depends on the graphic artist. But again, you can see how visually how much, without having to read something about the study, this really helps to summarize the main findings or what the focus group had, what came about with the focus group. Next slide, please. I'm now going to talk about a study that I did. It was looked at young people who live with anxiety. And with this study, we first interviewed young people, and then we had them go out into the world and take photos of what it was like to live with anxiety, what it represented to them. And when we told them to go out to take pictures, the pictures could be symbolic or it could be literal as well. So again, it was up to them, and we gave them a choice as to how many pictures they wanted to take, and we gave them a period of 3 to 4 weeks to take the photos. And that was individually they take the photos. And then we had them come, and then when they were ready to, we would interview them about the photos. Now, the photo voice has been described as a process by which people identify, represent, and enhance the community through creating and discussing photographs. It's a powerful tool for amplifying the voices of youth, and we found so in this study. And photo voice is, again, very participatory in method, and it actually gives the individual taking the photos control of what they want to do and what they see is important. I see it as an unobtrusive way of entering the worlds of individuals, providing strategies for them to define the problem of interest, revealing what might be uncomfortable or unknown. The whole process of photo voice was pioneered by Carolyn Lang and Marianne Burrs. With photo voice, I have used it a lot in many of my studies. And it, like I say, especially with this study with young people living with anxiety, the photos that they took to represent their their experiences were so powerful. I'm going to share some of them with you as well. Next slide, please. So in this study, we had young people ages from 10 to 22 years, and we also interviewed the parents, but I'm not going to be talking about that. There was 58 young people in the study. In addition to doing photo voice, we also had them do another arts-based method, eco maps. And eco maps is where you ask them to draw all the people places in their lives that are part of their lives, and then you have them draw what the relationships are like to what these people and places and the type of relationships, what they are they strong, are they weak, or so on. And again, that's another powerful way of understanding who's in this person's life. So we had eco maps, and we did the photo voices, and then we interviewed them multiple times, once before photo voice and once after photo voice. Next slide, please. When it came to the photos, I would ask them questions about the second interview. I would ask them questions about from the first interview, questions I want to follow up, and then then with the photos, we would ask them. We go through each photo, and we use the show method. That's by Dan and et al. Where you basically go through these 5 questions: what you see in this photo, what is happening here. How does this relate to your life? Why does this situation, concern, or strength exist? What can we do about it? And were there any other photos that you wanted to take but you weren't able to? And with these 5 questions, we also did ask additional questions. If there was something repeated, a repeated color, a repeated something repeated in each photo, we would follow up on, or if there was photos of perhaps no people, or if it was photos of just like say photos taken outside. So when you go through the photos, there's multiple questions that you can ask. Next question, next slide, please. And with the study, we really focus on analyzing the data. So look at their lived experience and what the lived meaning was, lived time, live space, and live body, and live human relationships. Next slide, please. Now I'm just gonna, this is, when it comes to lived meanings, the youth have many meanings that they assign to living with anxiety. And I'm just going to show some of them with you, some of the meanings that the young people have shared. So you see here, this is a picture of a fire. And if you read the quote, you can see it basically shows how, you know, the anxiety consumed them, and how, you know, just how anxiety was so much a part of their life. You can see how they talk about the smallest spark that can, you know, trigger the anxiety, you know, and about how, you know, it was important to the anxiety about taking care of themselves with, you know, with living with anxiety. The next slide, please. And so here's another symbolic, this picture is very symbolic of what it's like to live with anxiety. And here, the young people talk about how, basically the dead grass is someone with anxiety, and whereas the green grass is everybody else. So it's really like how, you know, they are, not part of it, you know, they are outsiders, so to speak. So next slide, please. I'm just gonna, and here, this side, it shows a side of a monster. And again, how, living with anxiety, they saw anxiety as a monster. You can see again how powerful just this, these pictures can be without the words. Although the words, what they said, were also very empowering. Next slide, please. And here, this was a picture of the young person who took this picture. That it was actually a picture of her painting, and she described anxiety as, basically, overthinking. Again, how much is consumed in their life, and so in their lives. So how much overthinking is a part of anxiety. So what we did too, so we used the photo voice for knowledge production, but we also used it for knowledge translation. So what we did was some of the meanings that the young people applied, some of the meanings that the young people had, talk about. We created some videos that represented exactly what anxiety meant to them. And in these videos, you'll see drawings and you'll hear words and so on. And all the pictures that the animation and the pictures, those were all part of that came from the photos, and the words were what the young people had said as well. So we have a series of videos based on what young people saw anxiety, what it meant to them. And I'm just going to show you one of the videos right now. And this one, again, was up that photo of overthinking. Overthinking was a theme that came through many of the young people's transcripts. So let's show the video.
Dr. Roberta Woodgate and her team worked on a research study on youth and their experiences living with an anxiety disorder. As part of the study, we asked young people what they wanted others to know about their lives. They wanted others to know their anxiety was real. This video attempts to do just that by bringing to life the words, metaphors, and visuals from the research interviews with youth.
My brain feels like it's constantly running a marathon. It's exhausting. It just feels like everything's moving too fast. You overheat almost. It's like listening to a record on repeat, but it's a bad record. Or the rain, like it starts spitting and then it gets harder, more, and it just builds up. Imagine if you work hard to solve a math problem and then you just, like, it would be like trying to solve it again. And it's unnecessary because you don't need it. You already have it fixed. Why are you keeping on going? I feel like I have a little person in my head. I don't know who it is, but they're there and they're sitting in my head and they're just screaming at me. And they're freaking out about random things that make you scared. And then you're freaking out. They keep talking and talking. It's like, please be quiet. I'm trying to calm down, but it doesn't help. I can just picture this little person bouncing around, just screaming so loud and just breaking down. And then sometimes it just becomes too much, and you get so overwhelmed that everything else shuts down. It's like white noise with a blank screen.
If we can go to the next slide now. So what you saw in that video, again, everything that was depicted in that video, the words came from the young people's interviews, and then the images were also came from the photos that we took. So you can see how, again, you can use photo voice for actually producing the knowledge, but also using it for knowledge translation. For that particular series of videos, I have 5 videos, and they're available on YouTube. So I can share with you the links after this presentation. So I'm just going to show you some more pictures based on the lived experience that youth represented, and looking at lived time. It was amazing the number of young people who took pictures of clocks, alarm clocks, and so on. Time really figured importantly into lives. They were living either in the past or worrying about the future, but never that present. Next slide, please. Another common pictures that were taken were pictures of nature, but also nature that for the young people was very relaxing for them, helped them with anxiety. But then they would also show pictures of busy streets and so on, and that was again a source of anxiety. And I found this picture. You could just show how creative the young people were. This was a very powerful picture because you had nature imposed on the busy city life. So again, as again, how these pictures can work can really show so much. Next slide, please. And again, this is just another example of the lived experience about lived space and how finding that place that's really comfortable. And again, you can just by just looking at the picture, it says a lot. Next slide, please. Young people, when it came to the lived body, many of the young people felt very uncomfortable about how their body, how they felt, either how they looked, how they felt physically, how they felt around others. And again, without the words, you wouldn't almost need the words, but how this picture with what this young person says shows how young people feel living with anxiety. Next slide, please. This is an example of the eco maps. Again, another way of using art to depict what's happening in the youth's lives. I'm using eco maps in some of my other studies, and some people can get very creative when it comes to eco maps. Right now I'm doing a study of young people living with chronic pain, and we're doing photo voice and eco maps, and also arts and some other arts-based methods. And for those with the young people living with chronic pain, some of them have done PowerPoint presentations, they've done different types of symbols and so on. But you can see again with this how the broken lines are, with certain, people with certain relationships, that how the pictures really tells the story. Next slide, please. Again, with this study, I had a youth advisory committee, and one of the things that we asked them, youth advisory committee throughout the study, when it came to knowledge translation, what would they like to see first when it comes to translating the findings into the public. And what was really important to them was that they want others to know what a day in the life is like for a young person living with anxiety. So we did again a series of videos based on their themes, and there were 5 videos, and we took it from the day they woke up to the day that they went, and ended up going back home. And so the first thing that came out was, and again, next slide, please. It was based on that whole hiding the struggle, and many of the young people in the study talked about hiding the struggle. What it was like putting on a different face, and this was a photo taken from one of the young people in the study. And with this, so I'm going to show you just one of the videos. I'm not going to show you every video, but I'm going to show you the video that came from hiding the struggle. If we could see the video now. And I just want to say too that these videos, what we did for the videos was we created a series of dance vignettes. I worked with our Royal Winnipeg Ballet on the aspirant program with young people in training. I had a young choreographer, and we took the 5 major themes, and again, this is what these videos are based on. So this is hiding the struggle. You can show the video now.
You might not be able to see right now that I'm a little anxious. My lips are quite straight, considering. Because people don't go like this all the time. And it looks like everything, not in a gross way, but like everything has gone or moved down. Everything's been anchored in, like in my face and in my body. Because my shoulders sag, and my knees are like bent a little bit because it's like not wanting to stand up anymore. It's heavy. So I hide it. I look normal from the outside, but really I feel totally different on the inside.
So I just want to stress again, when the words that you heard, those all came from they all came from what the young people said in the study. So again, that was the first video that comes to that getting up in the morning. And then the next, and I'm not going to show you a video, for each of these, but the next video deals with fear of the unknown. And If we can. Oh. So this is the ending video. I skipped through all those other slides. This is the ending video. If we can show that video, that would be great.
The fear, almost, it's almost like you're crawling instead of just walking to achieve anything. Almost like you're crawling and scraping over the floor trying to get anywhere, because anxiety is riding on your back and you're crawling and it's so heavy. You know, I don't need this luggage. Maybe I could stand up straight and get this done. But it's just, I guess, anxiety is that burden. The heavy, heavy backpack. Can no one see it?
Go to slide 47 just because of time right now. I know there's a lot of questions, so I want to be able to just quickly end this end the presentation to allow for questions. But so again, just want to emphasize how we took the 5 themes that my youth advisory committee felt were really important for from the study. What was important for everyone else to know about anxiety. And what we did with these videos as well, we hosted an event at a theater in Winnipeg at the Gas Station Theater Arts Center, where we had a film screening of the 5 videos. We also in the lobby had a photo voice display of some of the photos and what some of the interview transcripts of those photos. And so we showcased the videos, and then we had a panel discussion that involved some of the dancers, myself, the person who produced the films, and also some young people. And we had questions asked in the audience. And what I thought was really important, and it shows the importance of participating young people and how they want to be involved. In the audience, some of the young people who participated in the study who had really, severe social anxiety, took the effort to come to sit in the audience just to be part of it. So again, that was another way of engaging young people. Next slide, please. This was, again, we also did another photo voice exhibit where we showcased some of the findings and what each youth said about the photos. Next slide. Another thing, well, I don't think we have time today, but I do have, it is on my YouTube channel, where we produced a photo voice scene of some of the photos, and it was really especially meant for what it was like for young people with anxiety, and the whole experiences in going to school, from getting up to going to school, and it was meant for I think just to help to understand what it's like for young people and what it's like, having to navigate their daily challenges. Next slide, please. So I think, again, when it comes to engaging young people in research, and again, there are different ways of engaging them and how much they want to be involved. Some in my studies, some have been involved as from the very beginning to being co-researchers. I'm now running a study where I have a couple of studies where I have young people who are co-researchers. Next slide, please. And this, I'm going back to this this drawing that came from the focus group on how to involve young people in research, and just take time to look at some of the key things that young people feel is important. Mentoring is very important. Providing young people with compensation, and to recognize that their time is important and their involvement is important, and so on. So again, this along with my other research, this helped me to really identify the key points when it comes to engaging young people in research. So I developed, and I don't think because of time I'm going to be able to go through all of it, but I developed a youth engagement framework in research. If you can go to slide 53, and some of the key components when it comes to engagement are the 17 components as you look at, from motivators to goals, facilitators, barriers, reinforcers, and so on. And each of these came from what I've done from involving young people in research, what young people have said are important. So it's all from what young people see. And if you go to the next slide, this is just the next slide just shows the overall the key points of this framework. And again, I have this available for anyone who would like this. And because of time, I'm not going to be able to go through this. But again, it just shows by really, when you're engaging people, being authentic and really paying attention to what they feel will help them in the research to be engaged. It is possible. I think I'm going to end my presentation now to allow for questions. Priscilla, if you think that would be appropriate.
Absolutely, Roberta. And with your permission, I certainly will be sharing those links with folks from your presentation, so they have an opportunity to take a look at your tool guide, for instance, some of the videos and tools that you provide in your presentation, which is absolutely exceptional and well done. And that's echoed through all of the conversations that have been flooding through our chat as you've been delivering the presentation. So I invite folks who do have questions for Dr. Woodgate to either raise their hand or continue to populate the chat with the questions that you may have. I am going to direct our attention to the chat though, because we do have some questions in the wing. The first question is actually related to your anxiety study. Were the interviews following the photos done individually? Was a question we were posed.
Yes, they were done individually. So so every youth was interviewed individually. And one thing about is now some people with photo boys, they'll have participants take photos, and some will not. You don't necessarily have to follow up with interviews. You can just look at the photos themselves and analyze them themselves. I like to really also engage you in interviews afterwards to see what it means to them.
Perfect. Another question I have in the chat for you, Dr. Woodgate, is REBs in medical, health, and/or care settings are often unfamiliar with arts-based methodologies and methods, and seeking to engage with children as a research population is fraught with its own REB barriers, especially sick kids. I'm wondering what promising strategies you've utilized to be successful with your REB processes and get to do the work you want to do.
Yes, and that can be tricky. And I just want to share with you one of my own experiences. And I must say it has gotten so much better. And I have various, like when we do go through ethics, if you give explanation why it's important, and you also, if you create consents that will allow the young person or whoever's in the study to decide how much they want to be involved. But just want to share when you say about, how RABs can be, about 12 years ago, I think it was 12 years ago, I was submitting a application that involved looking at young people taking photos of what it means to be. Part of it was looking at what it means to be healthy. And at the same time, I had a graduate student who was submitting her application and looking at the experiences of farm women and what it's like to live on a farm and what are the sources of stress. And she also used photo voice, and she modeled her ethics application after mine. And so we both submitted at the same time. And, she got her application back and no problem, got approved. And I thought, good for you. And then I got my application back and they were really concerned about the photo voice, about young people. What are you going to do if they take pictures of illegal, something that's illegal and so on. But again, it shows how what you have to do is flip it around and show it, like, they want to know how we would handle that data. And I said, well, I would handle it like written data, like anything else. But again, it's also to show that, perceptions of how people think what young people are doing and so on. But, really try to get ahead of them when you're submitting to ethics. Think of all the things that, they are going to challenge you on, and try to have that explanation up front.
Great answer to that question, Dr. Woodgate. There's also a follow-up to that same question around publishing in medical health-based journals that often, misunderstand this type of qualitative work. Do you have any strategies or recommendations for those on the call who are looking to make these types of submissions?
Yeah, and it's what we're now doing now. At one point when I first started out, there's no way, like my ethics would not, what ethics I would go to would not allow me to show any photos with pictures of faces or anything that can identify. And I remember one study that I was doing, it was looking at families of children with complex care and how they participate in everyday life. And there was one photo where a young child who had cerebral palsy had this beautiful expression on their face. And we had said to the dad, well, we're not going to be able to show his face in this picture. They were at some event, I think it was some race or something. And the dad said, but that's everything of who he is. Why wouldn't you want to show that picture? But over the years, it has changed. We now have these consents where if someone's going to take a photo of somebody else, they share the consent and say, do you want, can we take a photo of you? If you take this photo, is it allowed? Are we allowed to show you your photo in a publication? There's various, like I say, there's various check boxes on this consent. But I'm finding ethics is now, and at least ethics, they're now getting, they're more educated about the importance of how arts can, really show what the person's experiencing. For journals, I'm finding too, I haven't had any problems recently with journals as well. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you for chiming in and answering that question for us. Another question in the chat for you is, are there any recommendations you would give those on the call on how we can ensure the safety and confidentiality of the youth while also having them involved in abiding by RAB processes?
I think it would be the same as, if you were doing interviews minus the art space. There's always that, confidentiality and, what steps you ensure to taking the same steps you ensure as doing an interview. And again, we ask that participant as well, how much do you want to have shared in the publication? Do you want to have your photos shown? Do you want to have, or your artwork or whatever? So again, I really, I don't know. It's really listening to that participant, what they see is important to the person who's in the research, what they would like.
That's, a great piece of advice is really connecting back to your participants and asking that question and involving them in that decision making. Another question we have in the chat here for you is, can you provide some more information about your analytical processes? For the Photo Voice Anxiety Project, did you use Van Manen's Life World to code and interpret the data?
We did, and when it came to the photos, we did the analysis with the photos and the interviews. Both the graphical data helped to inform the text data and vice versa. So it was together. You can also take the photos separately, and that's another part of analysis where you could just look at photos and analyze them, as that would be a separate part of analysis. So there are multiple ways of doing the analysis.
That's a really great piece of advice, is that there is no singular way of doing this. There are multiple different approaches you can take when analyzing imagery and thinking through arts-based approaches more critically. Another question we have in the chat for you is, were the youth involved in directing the video aside from using their words or art to inform the videos? And what directing notes were the actors given?
Okay, well, when it came, I'm glad you asked that question too. I just want to, in the first set of videos, the young people in the videos were actors. At first, we were going to have the youth, for those who wanted to, but none of them wanted to participate, and that's fine. When it came to the videos, they were not involved in directing due to time. But you know, again, that's another. It shows you how much involvement they can. You know, the youth, you can have your youth involved. They were involved in deciding on the at least when it came to dance vignettes, on deciding, you know, what the key themes were, and also once they were completed, we had them review the vignettes to see what they thought about them and if they wanted any changes.
Perfect. I have another question in the chat for you. Given the strong focus on arts-based methods, has your team considered partnering with the Duke of Edinburgh program to facilitate youth in sustaining their participation in enrichment activities outside of their involvement in research studies?
Actually, I must admit, I don't know anything about that program, so but I'm always happy to you know, collaborate with anybody if it's going to help, you know, in some way.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is the importance of collaboration within this space as well. A question that was posed, which we've kind of addressed already, is whether or not these links will be circulated to those on the call. I'd like to assure everyone I certainly am happy to circulate those links that were integrated in the slide deck.
I was going to say too, with the dance vignettes, at least we had enough money to have it translated in 3 languages: English, French, and Cree. Because you know, you want to try to get it, like, you know, with any knowledge translation, you want to try to reach as many people as possible. And I also recognize too, you know, the dance vignettes may not be for everybody. So, you know, you try to do, when you try to reach out to the people as much as possible, and try to have as many forms as possible within limit of time and budget as well.
Absolutely. Resources are certainly going to inform a lot of that infrastructure for projects.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a comment that came in, Dr. Woodgate, that perhaps in a few minutes you can kind of address, is unpacking a little bit more about your youth engagement framework and what it's all about and the ways in which it can be utilized, noting that I will be circulating it afterwards.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't have time to go over it. Again, it came about through the years of doing research with young people, but also asking them in a study, what is important to engaging young people in research. So what it does is it walks you through the various from initially getting that young people interested in it, to making sure that, you know, once they're engaged in, you know, working with you on the research, that they will stay in it as well. So it's a way, again, of you know, using those 7 key concepts of keeping it, first initiating engagement, but then keeping them engaged as well.
Absolutely. And that question had come in from Jen, but I think it's an excellent one. And again, I'll be circulating the link and document for the Youth Engagement Framework, which provides some great insight on how to go about utilizing it in your own practices and research. So I encourage those on the call, once that email is circulated, to take a bit of a deeper dive into its applicability. Now, I'm just looking at the time. We do have room for some 1 or 2 more questions from the audience. Sasith, I see you have your hand raised. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation, and thanks, Priscilla, for taking my question. I just want to say, as a parent, I found like the quotes and the video so powerful. Like I just really appreciate, taking that perspective and seeing like their quotes embodied. It's really a powerful way to like get the information across. And I wonder, like in addition to getting the idea of experiences across to people and the knowledge translation component, I wonder if you've heard from participants about like if any personal benefits they've gotten from participating. Like I imagine the process itself is quite therapeutic. So I wonder whether you heard from them and what they say about that.
That's a great question, and not only with my anxiety study, but with all my research. Well, first of all, you question. I wonder, why would people come and sit down? They don't know you. But again, the young people and also parents and so on, they all see it really important to, they want to make a difference and help other people. And the other thing is, okay, so research, when I started out, it's not supposed to, you're not there, it's not supposed to be therapeutic, and that's correct. You're not there to, you're not there as a counselor or anything like that. But in all my studies, I'm amazed, like, first of all, that people are so open and sharing. And, at the end of the interviews or whatever however they participate, they will, they say this has been helpful for them. And again, I want to reinforce, we weren't there for any counseling, we were just there listening. And I also find it amazing too, for many of my, over the years, the work I've done, how for many participants, it's the first time they really got to talk about whatever you're interviewing them about, And I also think, you know how you're taught in research, you have to build trust, and and I think really that trust is there from the very beginning, because why would someone sign up to be in a study if they didn't trust you? And I think the whole thing, being a researcher, being connected with the university, the key thing though is, this trust can be broken if you're not authentic, you don't handle the research process properly. So no, it is very. And again, apparently I'm kind of thinking, sometimes some of the research I've done, it's like, I think, didn't you ever have someone to help you, like to talk, like some, how we have counselors and so on, and social workers or whatever, where were they, or do we only, and it shows, do we only offer them at the beginning of the experience, or, after they go home from whatever, so yeah, it has been, I think, most of my participants, they find it very helpful, and they also feel that just to make a difference, just hopefully what they have contributed will help somebody else. They don't want someone else to go through that experience. So
thank you so much, Sasita, for posing that great question. Dr. Woodgate, I can't thank you enough for really adding some insight into that piece. We do have time for one more question, which I see, Madison, your hand is raised. Please feel free to unmute yourself. Oh, we just can't hear you, Madison. Oh, I can't hear you. Would you like to type in the chat maybe? Can't hear you. Oh dear. Yep. If you could type in the chat, that would be great. I'd also like to thank Matthew for typing in his response. Holding space and witnessing for and with people is a powerful part in the healing journey. I completely agree, and I appreciate you including that within our chat for today's conversation. I think it's really insightful and cornerstone of a lot of work that Dr. Woodgate does. Absolutely, Madison. I think that's a great way. She's hoping to connect with you offline, Dr. Woodgate, if that's all right with you. I can certainly share the connection as well. We've come to time, so I want to thank everyone on today's call for joining us for such a wonderful conversation. Dr. Woodgate, absolutely exceptional to have you lead today's conversation on the importance and use of arts-based approaches to involve children and youth in the research process. So thank you again for joining us. And for those who still remain on the call, I do want you to mark in your calendars that our next session is with Dr. Patricia Ocampo, Executive Director of the Lee Cushing Knowledge Institute at St. Mike's Hospital, on Friday, April 21st at 11 a.m. Her presentation will discuss strategies for starting to engage and recruit patients and community members to be part of your research teams. Registration is required for that virtual event, similar to this one. I've placed the registration link in the chat for you if you're interested in joining. Thank you again for attending the Community Engagement Series, and we certainly look forward to seeing you again. Bye now.